Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Body Paint and SFX 101, and it's not as scary as it looks. My name is Mars. I have been cosplaying on and off since 2011, and I've been working as a makeup artist professionally for about 10 years now. I started out as a makeup artist in fashion and bridal. I started working as a cosmetic instructor with a bunch of makeup schools, and I have since transitioned to TV and film. My work has been featured in advertisements for the Overwatch League. I've been published in Vogue and the New York Times, and I've also probably worked on some of your favorite TV shows and films. I can't name them because I have some NDAs right now, so I want to keep my job. So if you would like to follow me, this is an old screenshot, but this is my main account. You will see most of my cosplay here. I do have a makeup account that is just Mars York Makeup, and if you would like to see some of my work that I'm allowed to share, you can go to my website, marsyorkmakeup.com. So what to expect out of this? This is kind of like a basic overview just for understanding. So if any of you have already done body paint or any like level of SFX, this might seem a little redundant, but we're gonna go over pre-makeup prep, what tools to use, how to apply body paint and prosthetics, and how to make these things last all day, and how to remove these things safely. And then also post-con skincare as well. And after, I'll have some time so you can ask questions as well. So for prep, when it comes to body paint, we want to exfoliate the body with body paint on the body. You can use things like this No Bump Body Scrub or Dr. Teal's. When you are using any exfoliant on your face, the pro tip is that you don't use anything with grains. The facial skin is really delicate, and it can also cause any harsh exfoliant will cause microabrasions that damage the skin barrier, so you want to go for a chemical exfoliant. So these are some options here as well. And I'm giving you guys different price points. I will let you know once we go into the prosthetics, it is going to be a bit of a higher price point, just to let you guys know. You want to hydrate your skin. So these are some products that you can use. Again, different price points, different moisturizers for what might be good for you. And here is for some pre-body paint prep. Prep is the most important part of body paint. Any type of primer is going to help the paint last all day. My personal favorite is the Mayron Skin Prep. I like to opt for more professional tools, but if you are on a budget, you can use something like the e.l.f. Power Grip Primer. Now we're gonna get into the actual fun stuff. So the different types of paints, what they're good for. So water-activated paints are the most easily accessible, but they do have a bit of a learning curve. So these, as it says, activates with water, but that does mean they will come off with any type of sweat. If it rains, it'll start to break down. And these can be a little bit tricky to use. If you're not familiar with it, they can get really streaky. It takes a lot to work with them, and we'll get into that in the tools. The next is cream and oil paints, or grease paints. So cream is really good on the face. These also will break down with sweat, not as easily. These are also the highest pigment out of all the paints that I'm gonna go over. So if you saw me yesterday, I was dressed up as Malevola from Dispatch, and I used cream paints on my face. So these are some different options. I also wanted to highlight Sunset Makeup. So they are a cruelty-free makeup brand, and they make really beautiful, pigmented, colorful foundations. These are liquid paints. A little bit harder to use, but these are really great for airbrushing. So when you are using a liquid paint, you want to dilute it with a mixing liquid, which is this product in the middle over here. And you want to do equal parts your paint and the mixing liquid. Airbrushing is also really tricky. When I did it in school, it was something that I had a lot of trouble with. You want to keep the airbrush moving, because if you leave it in one spot, it's going to be really pigmented in that spot and kind of patchier on the rest. One thing about liquid paints is they can crack. So if you go to use it on any like mobile part of the body, like on your arms, so in this like elbow area, you'll see the paint crack in that area. So that's why cream paints might be better there. The best paint, in my opinion, is an alcohol-based paint. So these are great for prosthetics. They are the longest lasting because they only activate with 99% isopropyl alcohol or with a activator. They are the most difficult to remove. And yes, I lost my train of thought, sorry. So these are a higher price point. They are a little bit, you wanna make sure you're in a really well-ventilated area, and I'd be careful about using these on your face. If you go a little bit too close to your eyes, the fumes can get into your eyes and it can be quite painful. So for those that want to do a full body paint, I would recommend this site over here. They make colorful morph suits, and they actually match the colors to Mayron face paints. Morph suits can be quite overstimulating for some people, but you'll get a really good color. It's good for a con. I wouldn't recommend doing a whole body paint at a con, but if you want to do it at home, go off. This is an example of them actually matching it to the shades. So tools to use and how to add definition. These are all different types of brushes. When it comes to body paint, we want to aim for a synthetic brush. Synthetic brushes don't take bacteria as quickly, they're easier to clean, and they tend to last a lot longer. Natural bristles take bacteria very quickly, and they also tend to shed a lot faster than synthetic brushes. So this might seem a little counterintuitive, but when you want to add definition to body paints, you're actually going to go across the color wheel. So if you're using a warm color, for example, like a red, you would go for a blue for a contour. You also can just add black, but you'll get a more natural shade if you start mixing in another color. I would recommend adding a small amount at a time when you do this, because when you mix contrasting colors, they turn to brown very quickly. So body paint on darker skin tones. When it comes to working with more melanated skin, warmer undertones are going to work the best. So anything like a red or even like a deeper green, those are going to be great, but working with lighter colors is not impossible. One of the things that I tend to do when I'm working with a body paint on a deeper skin client is I'll start to mix in a warmer color to make it pop a little bit more, and it also prevents a gray cast. These are all different setting sprays that you can use. So Final Seal is one of the things that I use in my kit. If I can't get that, I use the Kryolan Fixing Spray. If these are not accessible to you, I would recommend the L'Oreal Infallible Spray. When it comes to non-SFX makeup, you should use an aerosol spray. They have a higher performance out of all the other setting sprays. So for removal, you want to either go for a Ben Nye, like remove it all, or an oil-based cleanser, or a micellar water. And for any of you that have done body paint, I'm sure you've taken it all off and noticed that you were still stained. When in doubt, use dish soap. It is the trade secret. It is what we do. I used dish soap on my face last night when I couldn't get the red off. So this is the most important part of this presentation. We're going to get into the prosthetics. You need to patch test everything. So even if you don't think you have a latex allergy, you want to patch test the latex. You want to sanitize all of your tools and products. You need to practice proper skin prep and removal. When working with harsher chemicals, you need ventilation and PPE. Again, this is not to scare you for those of you that are interested in SFX, but you can really hurt yourself when using things like silicone or Sculpting for yourself, you could have anything from like a minor skin irritation to a really bad infection to like potentially going blind. So product safety is very important. A lot of people will use something like rigid collodion, which is a scarring liquid. So if any of you have seen, I'm sure you have, The Dark Knight, the scars on the Joker were done with a silicone prosthetic and rigid collodion. You do not want to bring something like rigid collodion close to your eyes, because what it does when you layer it is it actually pinches the skin into itself. So if you do it too close to your eye, you're going to start pulling the skin down. Not great. So these are different types of prosthetics. Silicone prosthetics, easily accessible. They are a higher price point, but they're really great for long-term wear, and you would use an acetone to blend the edges out. Foam latex, also another easily accessible one. It is a little bit more old school, and it's not as flexible as silicone prosthetics. It does require a lot of patchwork and paintwork, but this is also something that you can sculpt at home. Pros-aid transfers are great when it comes to wounds. Another great long-term wear, this is something that I use in my work when I'm doing wounds on clients, or I use this a lot on the TV shows that I work on. It is the best option for smaller details as well, and the only thing is you must have a dehydrator when working with these. Okay, so trigger warning for fake gore, in case anyone's sensitive to that. Making your own prosthetics. So when we are creating custom prosthetics, avoid sculpting directly on the skin. If you have access to a life cast, or if you can make one yourself, I would recommend sculpting on that if you're doing sculpts on yourself. So when I work on films, we do a life cast of the actor, which is about 5 makeup artists kind of work at the same time because there's a very quick drying time for a life cast. And then we take that life cast and start building on it once it's dry. So for basic prosthetics, you can use liquid latex, tissue, and paper towels. Paper towels, the only thing is when you use them, that like texture is going to be in your prosthetic. So tissues are recommended. Easily accessible, but it is very, very time consuming because of how many layers you have to use and the drying time. You can speed it up with like a blow dryer, but it's still very long. For like an intermediate level, if you want to make your own prosthetics, you can use SFX gelatin. So it's 1 part gelatin powder, 1 part glycerin, and 1 part corn syrup. There is a much better effect, but this one does have like a bit of a higher learning curve. And for advanced, you can make your own silicone molds by mixing part A and part B. This one, again, is a lot, like if you haven't gone to school for this, this is quite difficult and will take some time to figure out. So when it comes to prepping for prosthetics, we are going to use something like a primer, but we want to use either a barrier spray, a DermaShield. DermaShield foam is a really great one. Mayoron Skin Prep is another easily accessible one, and just this skin prep as well. So these are how to apply prosthetics. I prefer the silicone adhesive or Pros-Aid. I know a lot of people like to use, there's another adhesive, but it is a water-based adhesive, so it tends to break down with sweat, and almost everyone is allergic to it to some extent. So the more you use it, the more aggravated your skin will get. The longer time that you use it as well, you will start to have like negative effects as well. These are how you remove prosthetics. So Bond Off is another really great product. There's also Telesis Remover, which is a silicone prosthetic remover, and this is isopropyl maestrostate. So this is something that I use on my professional clients. For post-paint and SFX care, so for any prosthetics, you're using really harsh materials with a prosthetic. You don't want to use alcohol right after. It's going to be too harsh on the skin. And what this is all about is you need to cleanse everything off, and then you really need to hydrate. So there's different serums and things that you can use. And that's it. So usually I run this with 2 other people, but this is my first time doing it alone. So I know I went through that kind of quick. Does anyone have any questions?
When it comes to people who have a lot of body
Mhm.
sometimes the application of body pains can mess up how it stays.
Mhm.
What are your suggestions for things like that?
So when I do any like body paint or prosthetics on someone with body hair, we shave them first. That's the easiest thing. Yeah. Hmm?
What are your tips for painting yourself at a con? I've had friends that like put up shower curtains inside the shower to prevent from, coloring the tub.
Do you know what kind of paints they used?
This one was alcohol based.
Alcohol based. So if they're doing like a whole body or if they're doing like an airbrush, then I would recommend any kind of like tarp basically and like doing it in the shower. But you also want to be in a place with like proper ventilation. So having like a fan on or anything will help. Hmm? The one that I just wrapped that I know that I can talk about is I just worked on Camp Crystal Lake. So that'll be coming out soon. I was not personally like on set for anything, but I sculpted a lot of babies for this show. I made a lot of teeth. We got to do a couple life casts on some of the actors, and also having to like save a like generic female life cast. So that's something that we would use like epoxy and resin for. Hmm?
Do you have any suggestions for like further like research or reading, like YouTube channel, books?
So when it comes to special effects, Freakmo on YouTube, she's a really good resource and she does very in-depth tutorials. I might start doing tutorials when I get a better setup. So that is something that you can potentially look for. And I'm forgetting her name now. If you find me after, I can give you it. But there's someone who used to do a lot of body paint on YouTube as well that talked about the process of, like, she used to use a lot of water activated. And so even though I went to school for this, I had a lot of trouble doing water activated paints. And so I actually watched her tutorials on how to like properly blend water activated paints so I didn't get that like streaky finish. Luigi?
Which type of body paint do you think is more effective for acrobatic situations where you're dealing with a lot of sweat and moving against apparatuses?
I would recommend alcohol for that. Hmm?
You can mix them actually. You mentioned like cream works better on joints and face paints and everything.
Yes. So I like to go in with water activated paints and then blend with the cream color. It looks a lot more like a foundation than just like going in with something directly.
What's a product that you would suggest, like for hydration, for someone with like eczema?
For eczema, so anything with like a ceramide, so that will help as well. Or you can also turn to serums on top of your moisturizers. So like a hyaluronic acid will help a lot with hydration. And you can use some products, I'll talk to you this after, that have like a calming, some like ingredient in it. So we can talk about that. Mm-hmm.
I do Sogatano cosplay, so it's orange.
Mhm.
And I feel like I've gotten the makeup down pretty well. The only problem is that every time I put it on, my pores seem to just stick out so much. And I did try doing pore filler before I put that on. And I was just wondering if you had any suggestions on how to make myself less, like my pores less visible.
What paint are you using?
I am using an alcohol-based one. It was a Pro Air.
Pro Air? Okay, great product. What you can do is sometimes I'll mix different primers for this. So I will mix a like long-lasting primer, so something like a Ben Nye or a Mayron, and then do a pore filler on top of it, and that should help.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hmm?
For face paint where you're having to do layers of the same texture on top of each other, how would you set between layers? Would it be a powder between layer, a setting spray, just to make sure that things of different colors
Oh, you're using different colors on top of each other.
Or like for like shading, for example, like a cream based paint, going in and putting in a shading color without wiping off some of the cream underneath.
Yeah, so you wouldn't have to powder it. You don't need to necessarily set in that case because you want the colors to blend a little bit, especially when it comes to like shading and contouring. So what I do is I have like a little fan that when I'm working in layers, I'll use the fan for a second, put the setting spray on, and then I'll start to go in with the other colors for shading. Hmm?
For prosthetics that you're going to be sticking close to your hairline, do you recommend anything for keeping your hair from getting
Vaseline.
Vaseline?
Yeah, so anytime something's really close to the hairline, or like if we don't want to shave the body, like let's say we need maybe like an arm prosthetic and we want the actor to have armpit hair, we'll use Vaseline around the edges. That way it won't get stuck in the hair.
You mentioned in the beginning, before we even put on any primer or any makeup, to exfoliate and to moisturize, especially the face area.
Mhm.
Are we using any application or just putting it on hands-free?
So my personal preference as a professional is I apply everything with a brush. So it's just the most sanitary, especially when we are kind of like working with something close to our eyes or anything like that. Just a brush, any type of brush. Do we have any other questions? Yeah.
For priming, do you have a separate recommendation for lips?
So for lips, what I typically do, even in just like non-SFX makeup, is I will put like a balm or a chapstick or even like an overnight lip mask on my clients while I do the rest of their face, and have that sit there and have that be the last thing that I do. If they are someone that has a pretty dry lip, I'll actually go in with a spoolie, so a little mascara wand, and go around the lips while having it coated in Vaseline, so that'll cut off some of the dead skin, and then put on an overnight lip mask and let that sit.
Before applying?
Before applying. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Does wearing makeup benefit you in something going on?
A little bit. So I loved makeup growing up, which is why like I wanted to do this for work. And body painting kind of came a bit after. I would say having the experience that I had, just like learning about makeup before I went to school for this did help a bit with some things. Any other questions? Hmm?
You find a lot of different products for tattoo cover-up for different situations. Do you think those tend to be effective, or is it still best to come up with your own custom system?
So, tattoo cover-up, I do like to use alcohol if it's something that I need long term. You can use your own like system. There are like Skin Illustrator does make like a tattoo cover alcohol palette, and then there's also Cover FX, which I think is now accessible on Amazon, which is a really good like full coverage makeup brand. But depending on like the level of the tattoo, you can also do it with cream paint, and it's all understanding color theory. So with tattoos, even though to us the ink is black, it's actually a very, very dark blue when we are talking about black tattoos. And so you want to cover it with like a pink or a peach before going in with your skin tone. Do we have any other questions? Otherwise, we could end early. And if you're like too nervous to ask, oh, there.
It's not you know, but is there any way we can access all the slides or something with that information? We're grabbing some of it, missed some.
Oh, yeah. Come up to me after and I can send you like a link to it. I tried to make a QR code for like people to like download the slides and it did not work. I'm not the most tech savvy, I'm so sorry. So yeah, I can share these with you guys. But otherwise, if you're too nervous to like ask anything in front of a crowd, you can come talk to me. If you're curious about like how I work as a makeup artist, like how I got to do this for my job, I'm happy to talk about that as well. But otherwise, we can end early. So thank you.